It's the best time to have a kid when you're 60.
He's talking about the problems that have happened because of the migrant crisis in this city, right?
But when the frame of your entire argument is simply avocados and guacamole, I don't think that is all that persuasive in its own.
Party, drinking with my girls.
Greg Gutfeld is having a baby. He's 60 years old. There's some really cool wisdom here from Tyrus as a father. This goes out to all my dads out there. Many people in my audience are 60 or older. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. I'm Doug TenNapel. This is where the happy patriots are. We're partying with Greg Gutfeld having his first baby girl at 60 years old. We're also going to go into a little bit of some New York Times headlines they make fun of regarding guacamole. I swear we're going to try and bring all of this together somehow. Thanks for watching.
It's with great joy that my wife Elena and I have welcomed a baby girl into the world.
1 down, 3 to go, Gutfeld. Good for him. It's the best. Honestly, it's the best time to have a kid when you're 60. No, it is. Think about it. He's financially set. You know, he values his time he's got left. So he's not gonna miss the first steps. He can afford to be home for that. He can afford to make it to all the baseball games, you know, God willing.
Is it the best time to have a kid at 60? You know, I was married at 23 and we waited 10 years. I think I was 35 when we had our first, the beloved Miss TenNapel and I had our first kid. And it was way too long. We waited way too long. 35? But I bought that lie that you need to, you know, take care of all your bills and all your houses and all your career first. And I did that as an artist. And I realized looking back after having 4 kids, I go, that's the biggest lie ever. Because now, I don't get to spend as much time with my kids, right? I have less of my life to spend with them. That's what Gutfeld's going to deal with. He's 60 years old going, I just have a kid. He'll be 80 when they turn 20. Okay. But that's kind of the lie of our generation, to wait. Kids are supposed to be disruptive. They're supposed to be disrupting you, around in your early 20s. Now, some facts on Greg. He's been married since I think it was 2004, somewhere around there, 2008 that he's been married. He married a Russian lady, and she's 42 years old having their first kid. We have nothing but happy prayers. I wanted to have a real celebratory episode on this one because I think this is really cool news. I love life. I love kids. I would never tell someone who hadn't had a kid not to. I'd always say, make that mistake, brother. Get in there and have a kid.
Daughters change dads. Like you raise your sons to one day take your place. You want your sons to be bigger and stronger than you and smarter than you. You always worry about your daughter. You always want to protect her. You always want her to be your daughter. So he's going to have to adjust to the fact that, like, to do this business, you have to be a little self-centered. You have to be a little egotistical. All that's going to have to change, because his whole focus is going to be her. He's going to worry about her for the rest of his days. Granted, being at 60, it's not a long marathon. But
Now, for those of you who've had girls and boys, do you see it different? Because I do. I kind of agree with them. The boys, you want to be bigger than you, but the girls, you worry about your whole life. You're always their protector. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, you know, all grown now, you know, high school, college age. There's something about daughters and dads. Now, my dad, Ed TenNapel, had 2 sons, myself and my big brother, Jim. And he always said he never wanted a daughter, that everyone in the family agreed that if my dad had a daughter, he would make her life miserable just by being so controlling and so overbearing of a dad. But I actually think a daughter probably would have changed him. I think that's what daughters do, even to the toughest of men. Again, if you're one of my tough guys out there in the audience and you have a daughter who has broken your heart or has you wrapped around her little finger, tell us about it in the comments below. Because I'm so happy I had a daughter. Both my boys and my girls, they have changed me in different ways, both to the good. But man, daughters, they have their dads around their little finger.
It's like a
daughters change you. The sons build your pride and you love them. It's the same love, but it's different. But a daughter, I love you, daddy, running the room, give you a hug, you will melt. And then one day she won't do it. And even worse, one day she'll go off and get married and it will be the father crying because his little girl's gone. Little girls change you. You're a better person for having daughters.
You're a better person for having kids, period. But daughters do change a man. They give you a kind of empathy for women that maybe you didn't have before also. But man, I've seen that all the time at weddings. It's the dad who's sobbing when it's his daughter being given away. Woo! It's a wipeout. It ain't pretty. My daughters get married. I don't know what I'm going to do. Because it's another man that starts taking care of them instead of the dad taking care of them. They go under the care of another person. It's very different with a son, where he's supposed to be a breadwinner and someone who takes care of his family, the great protector of his family. It's different when your son gets married and starts his own family. That's the theory. We don't get to talk about family enough here, and we're a pro-family channel. If you have a family or have had a family, then we celebrate you. And of course, we're here to party with Greg Gutfeld.
Tyrus, I mean, you see Mayor Adams at his press conferences now. He's not like the New York Times. He's not saying, oh, watch out, guacamole prices are going to go up. He's talking about the problems that have happened because of the migrant crisis in this city, right?
Well, just crime in general. They forgot that they elected a police officer, and he wants to do police officer things like keep the streets safe for people.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger issue is, whom is the editor that okayed this story? Somebody sat up at night, Kat, and says, I've got a great answer for what's going on with the border. If we compare the price of guacamole with illegal immigrants and drugs coming in the nation, America's going to get it. And then they wrote it.
Now, that's about a New York Times article saying, be careful about closing up the border because you won't get avocados and guacamole. That's their answer to Trump and to MAGA wanting to shut down the border. It is stupid, and that's why they're calling it out, and I think it's hilarious that they're calling out, but it goes to something much more serious. You know, Eric Adams is there in New York trying to deal with a migrant crisis, too many people using up all of their resources, and turning it into a crime world, where these areas are, where there's all these migrants, a lot of homeless people. It's creating like a collapse of the people that live at the bottom. Really hard on everyone. And so there's a serious side of this whole thing, even though the symbol for it is that New York Times went with is avocado prices. As he said, as if you're supposed to suddenly go, oh, now I'm against deporting and I'm against fixing the wall because someone's going to take away my guacamole. It really is, shows how totally disconnected liberals are, but especially at the New York Times. These elite, rich snobs in a skyscraper in New York writing this article.
And then they walked into their editor's office and say, hit the print with this. Like, this is the stupidest comparison ever. This would be like Gutfeld and talking about skyscrapers. There's nothing close between the two. It's like having a child at 60. It's dangerously weird.
And we just went full circle with the joke. So I love that too. It's crazy, you know, like having a kid at 60.
It was clueless of these people, but that's the kind of, you know, New York Times editors, that's what they're worried about, the yoga pants and the guacamole, right?
I think that, well, I mean, tariffs do often present as a tax on the American consumer. I think that that's an okay and important discussion to have. I understand that also there's the argument that he's using it as a negotiating tactic, so on and so forth. But when the frame of your entire argument is simply avocados and guacamole, I don't think that that is all that persuasive in its own, because I agree, guacamole should be a luxury item. It is luxury. I see what you're saying, but also I would say it's not that good.
Oh, no. It's that good. That's Kat Timpf. I like her because she graduated from Hillsdale College. You may not have known that. Making the whole case to be about avocados, another huge miss by the New York Times, and really ends up showing off their elitism while we're trying to secure a border. What do you guys think? What are you going to miss? I'd trade guacamole if it meant securing the border. That'll be our hypothetical question. Would you give up guacamole if you could secure the southern border? I'm Doug in Exile.